Hey yo, and welcome back to the letter. We are here already making a choice of whether or not we should show the warped photo to Hannah or to Ash, or excuse me, Mom Hollow. I don't think showing the photo to Ash will do any good because Ash always brushes everything off. So I think maybe it would be more beneficial to show Hannah. So we're gonna go with that. I don't have an explanation for what I saw yesterday. Yet. But when you've been there, seen something enough to raise the hairs on the back of your neck or leave you wanting to flee or hide, finding a more solid proof than a person's smudge off face on a photo is the least of my concerns. Ashton will undoubtedly give me flack for saying that or even considering Isabella's words and those silly tales about the place. The guy is a skeptic through and through. That's what I feel. It'll take more than my account for him to even give this a single thought. However, more than his opinion is Miss Wright I'm concerned about. Surely she must have felt something if those shows on TV are to be believed. Touch of coldness in her neck, or maybe the feeling of being watched. That's what often happens, ain't it? Outside, the sun has yet to rise. I've still got a few hours before dawn. Good enough time to mull over how I'll go about warning her. Plenty of space to check if I'll get the same result if I redo the process again. The film processor hums back to life at my touch. The light switch gives out a soft click, and darkness embraces the small closet again.
Somehow those urban legends don't sound so silly now.
In hindsight, this is a dumb idea. That is to say, rush into a client I barely know's home first thing in the morning, with news of Ghost Lady potentially haunting their newly bought property. Oh, and there's a bunch of bizarre-looking pictures of Miss Hannah I brought as proof, too. So yeah, dumbest idea in the history of my dumb ideas. All things considered. Traveling to the outskirts of Ansem Village at the crack of dawn with only my bike as company, equally so. Personally, I don't think any of them would take whatever I'm going to say well, no matter how nice or accommodating they are. Ashton himself would tell me the same thing. Odds are he'll laugh at me in my face for good measure, if he doesn't freak out at me first for not listening to his warnings. Still, there's a whole separate can of worms I'll open at a different time, seeing as I'm already standing at the Wright's front porch, waiting for someone to answer the door. More than anything, Miss Wright needs to know there's possibly nothing safe in this place. Warnings from friends be damned.
If only someone would answer the door sooner. Come on.
I try to ignore the looming presence their large ornate doors give off as I press the doorbell for the fourth time. A shrilling ringing merely echoes, carried off by another warm passing breeze. The first time I came to this place, I found myself basking in the silence it offers. Now the atmosphere is just heavy, packed with trepidation and tension. Isabella's right. It does radiate the creepy kind of vibe. And with the image from the day before constantly flashing in my mind, the unease becomes harder to ignore as each second drifts by. Not wanting to spend more time here than necessary, I ring the bell again. Another long second ticks without anyone answering the door. If this fails, I can always go to Ash. Not really the most sensible course of action either, but waiting here ain't doing me any good. For all I know, the Wrights could be out of town. As luck would have it, just as I'm about to turn on my heel, a loud thump rises from the other side. Butters, no. It follows by heavy footsteps and a string of very colorful expletives of one's parentage.
Didn't we have that bloody annoying doorbell replaced yesterday? That Irish guy just cost me a fortune and she can't even fix this music. And where the hell is Johannes, if another po-faced prat is pressing that blighted bell, I swear I'll cut that.
The door swings open, and the very irate Mr. Wright greets me. His partly rumpled appearance, a clear testament of how early the hour is.
And who might you be? I don't recall asking the movers to show up this early.
Oh, I'm a mover, a worker. How rude. You can just assume such things about me. Is it because of my race? I was prepared to face Mrs. Wright, their butler more so, but Mr. Wright, I don't quite know what to make of him yet. I only caught sight of him yesterday as he's directing the movers. Although, from how exasperated he sounded then, it seems like more yelling was done than actual giving of directions. Needless to say, I'd like to believe those instances ain't all there is to the guy. Miss Wright, at the end of the day, did marry him. Standing before him like now, though, is a different story altogether. Despite the difference in our respective heights, he manages to make it appear like he's the one looking down at me, not the other way around. An apology instinctively forms in my mouth before anything else when he arches an eyebrow at my lack of response.
Well, that's not exactly why I'm here, Mr. Wright, yeah?
Right, of course, the one and only. And what can I do for you this fine morning? Have I seen you somewhere before? Bloody you peasants all look the same to me.
Wow! Does he just mean poor people, or...?
Yeah, I'm actually...
It doesn't matter, I don't care. I've got someplace important to be at today.
Somewhere drinking?
Just spit out what you want or be gone. I haven't got all day.
His eyes are sharp and expecting in spite of his indifferent tone. The very impression of someone whose sharp wits has served him well throughout life, the kind you have to carefully choose your words around. Disconcern in how a simple conversation can easily seem like a ruthless form of social maneuvering. I can see why Miss Wright would want to steer clear of it, if only for a short while. And sometimes the only way out of the game is to be honest. I'm going to say that I'm a friend of Hana because I don't like you.
Sorry, sir. I was just... You see, I'm a friend of Hana, and...
A friend of Hana?
Hana?
Yes, sir.
His eyebrows shoot into his hairline at my answer. Although it swiftly disappears under his dismissive gesture, and a chuckle at it heals. A small frown spreads across my face before I can stop myself. What I said has nothing remotely funny in it. Yet here he is, hugging an arm closer to himself in a weak attempt to keep his shoulders from shaking.
Did I mispronounce something wrong, or...?
No, not at all. You didn't... my wife, has never mentioned a friend like you. That's all.
What? What do you mean, like me?
I suppose it's a good thing she's venturing out of the usual. Vultures and savages, all of them hiding under sheep's clothing.
I don't really get it, sir, but it's not really surprising she wouldn't talk about me. We just met yesterday during the shoot.
As soon as that statement is out, an amicable air melts away almost palpably. His eyebrows crease into a frown, and his posture stiffens. With how fast the atmosphere around us changes in merely the span of a few spoken words, I'm not quite sure what I can say anymore. Like handling a ticking time bomb. This is why Ashton wants us to stay away from them? If so, a part of me regrets not listening to him now.
Shoot. Who are you again?
Zachary Steele, sir. I was here yesterday from the magazine feature about your home.
Funny, she didn't mention making a friend in the gardens yesterday.
It was really just small chit-chat, sir. The usual. To keep things entertaining. The shoot did take the whole afternoon to finish.
Oh, I'm sure she was pleasantly entertained. She wouldn't be making friends with media types if she wasn't. No matter. She's her own woman. She can do what she wants so long as she doesn't do anything to ruin herself.
I'm sure Miss Wright is aware of that, sir.
That she is. But we aren't here to talk about her, are we? What is this about today? The city's a long way from here. On pushbike, no less.
Pushbike.
Yeah, I was actually hoping to talk to her.
Of course. Here for another headline, perhaps.
Not exactly, sir. I'm off work. This is for something else.
That's what they always say. The next thing you know, your face is in the front page of every conceivable scandal sheet going all the way to the ass end of Plymouth. You media types have such an insatiable taste for gossip. It's almost amazing.
There won't be any of that in an interior design magazine, sir. I can assure you that one.
Oh, you never know. Well-trained hounds have an uncanny way of sniffing out things no matter where you keep them. I do admire the passion, though. It takes a lot of energy for someone to leave bed this early, let alone knock at someone else's door at this hour. That aside, unfortunately, you're going to have to come back some other day. You see, darling wife left not a moment ago. I have not an inkling where she went, or when she'll be back, so you're better off.
Love, is it the movers?
He stops speaking altogether, and the complacent expression he has collapsed on itself. Slowly he turns just as his wife walks up to him, with a step too lively for comfort, a smile too sweet to be honest. She's very likely heard everything her husband and I have talked about.
Going off somewhere.
I've got the few things I want them to transfer already. Marianne made this splendid arrangement for the music room and... Love, are you listening?
I thought you already left, Buttercup.
She musters a frown, a pout more like. I'm doing the wrong voice. She musters a frown, a pout more like. A mischievous gleam in her eyes when she glances at me says all there is I need to know. I would have laughed at her antics if it wouldn't offend the other man. But as it is, it's better to let his wife have her fun without any reaction from me. I'm treading on dangerous grounds with him already.
Well, I most certainly have not left yet. I wouldn't be standing here if I did, would I?
Of course you wouldn't be, darling. But don't you need to be somewhere else today? Something with Marianne? Shopping, girl, things?
Why are you trying to get her out the house? Who you bringing over?
Oh, I'll be leaving in a few. Unless you want to join us.
No thanks, darling. I'm afraid my liver, it's killing me today. Ooh!
I thought as much. You needn't have to worry. I'll be gone in a few. It's just that I heard we have a visitor. What kind of person would I be if I didn't greet him before leaving?
A very gracious one, I'm sure.
Zachary, right? Zach? It's a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise, ma'am. I was actually looking for you.
Is that so? What for?
The photos.
A huge display of unprofessionalism is what it's for.
Shush, darling. Let the man speak. I'm sure it isn't anything like that if he has to come all the way here, yes?
It's about yesterday. The photos you asked, I mean. The copies are ready, but...
My hand stills as I'm about to fish the prints out my pocket. A short second passes, which strikes me how I didn't think this all through at all. How I'll go about telling her regarding the strange photos or revealing this to her in the presence of another person. Her husband gazing over us like a hawk doesn't provide any sort of comfort either. And just like that, all the words I have been practicing to say on the way here inevitably fall stiffly off my mouth. Miss Wright must have noticed my hesitance, because shortly she gives her husband an arm, a gentle squeeze, a tender smile, gracing her face. Unlike the first, this one's meant to appease.
Love, I think Hansi might need some of your input for the final guest list. Could you check on him, please?
She's a smart lady.
Bollocks! Why in all Luxborn do I have to be there? Doing tedious jobs of what he's being paid for?
Because if we end up with people whose faces you do not want to show up in our housewarming party, we won't be hearing the end of it. Unless a heavy dose of liquor's involved. You know what the doctor said about that. Please do poor Hansi and your liver a favor,
He can handle that on his own, Buttercup. And my liver is doing just fine.
I'm sure it is. But I don't know, love. I think I caught a glimpse of the name Mitch Lakes, was it? I think it was Mitch Lakes on it when I checked with Hansi earlier. You should see for yourself. It was quite a list.
Who put that blighted twat in there?
And that's why I'm asking you to look over it before I do so tonight.
Very well.
But even with that promise, he doesn't appear ready to leave. Short of passing through their doors, he steps and glances back at me, all without bothering to hide the distrust in his eyes.
Luke, dear, I'll be fine. Go back to your butler. I'm not some pregnant wife you have to worry about.
You're not the pregnant wife he's worried about. Someone else's wife.
Fine, fine. I have to go to that little ankle biter's career day later anyway. I don't see why I have to go there. Kylie's your goddaughter.
And yet, she has you around her little fingers, darling. That's basically the same thing.
If he ever has an answer to that, we don't get to hear it above the heavy thud the door makes, and Miss Wright's own weary exhale after she's sure her husband is out of earshot. She's nothing but apologetic when she fixes her gaze back to me, and I can't help but return the same to her.
I am so sorry you had to deal with that. My husband can be a bit trying when he really applied himself.
It's fine, Miss Wright. No harm done. It was my fault for showing up here unannounced. And this might be strange coming from me, but he does have the right to be wary. The press can be quite vicious when it wants to be.
Caught unexpectedly, they'll pick you apart. It's not surprising why he acted the way he did around me.
Sweetie, if Luke treats every journalist who shows up here like that, I'm afraid we'll end up with a harassment lawsuit hanging over our heads sometime in the future. Vicious or not, some sort of finesse has to be exercised when dealing with them. I'm sorry, I hope that wasn't too offensive.
Not at all, Miss Wright. Besides, I don't think an interior design magazine would be interested in who harassed who this week. Unless it has something to do with fighting over tastefully arranged furniture. But even then, I don't think our readers would be too interested.
Oh, dearie. You've got a lot to learn. You really have no idea how a single tattle can ignite a spark in a crowd. Of course, at the end of the day, it's still the thought that counts. It's still a lovely anniversary gift from my husband. No matter. Let's just go.
She doesn't wait for an answer and immediately wanders over a car parked some distance from us. Unsure, I find myself trailing after her. The chauffeur automatically opens the passenger's side door as she nears, and she gestures for me to follow when she climbs into the back seat.
To where are we going exactly?
I need to get out of this stuffy house for a while. Moving in, planning the party. It's starting to get suffocating in there. Luke and Hansi can have their fun while I'm gone. I don't care. I'm getting out because I can. Another minute in there and I'll drown.
My bike.
There's of course a lot of things questionable about her invitation. Why is she asking a person she's only known for less than 2 days in the first place is one. How appropriate this is being another. But the rest of it crashes the moment she shoots me an imploring look.
Please? I can have someone send it back to your address later. And it's just a trip to the city for some furniture, nothing more, I assure you. Marianne will be with us, and maybe you can tell me why you're here on the way.
Guess it wouldn't hurt. I might have to leave early, though.
Excellent, then. Hop in. That's what they often say, yes?
This can't be a good idea, but I really don't have any other choice, do I? Especially with the way her eyes light up when I agreed to it. In my pocket, the very picture of her remains faceless. A voiceless shadow hanging threateningly between us, unknown to her. If someone told me I'd be spending my entire morning being dragged around half of downtown Luxembourg and looking for furniture, I probably would have simply smiled at them. Then perhaps even given them a good friendly pat on the shoulder and wished them a nice day. Not that I find anything wrong with this at all. On the contrary, this is most definitely a nice change of pace after weeks of getting bogged down by several freelance gigs and shutting myself inside my apartment whenever I can. If only the weather would be a whole lot nicer, the kind with less sun and more clouds, perhaps. With the mid-morning sun slowly beating down on us, high noon approaches. It's high noon. I can see why Mr. Wright skipped out on this trip. The bright side is the whole thing seems to have put Miss Wright in a less somber mood. After the 5th store, her pace is considerably livelier, her gestures less guarded than the one she displayed at the mansion earlier. The presence of another person might have helped as well. Although Miss McCulloch seems less predisposed to small talk, preferring to keep to herself most of the time and let Miss Wright lead us wherever. She did acknowledge me with a small nod when we introduced earlier, but that didn't make standing outside the store together any less awkward while we wait for our client to finish her inquiry inside.
So, interior design, huh?
She cast me a sidelong glance before returning to her notes again, her pen scratching faintly against the paper in quick, successive strokes. And there goes that. I did say I'm not any good at starting or keeping conversations going, didn't I? She doesn't look back up again and takes that as my cue to stop any attempt of striking a dialogue with her and keep myself occupied with some other thing. Except what we have here is just Luxembourg and its busy streets. People going about their day like normal. Cars moving in and out of sight, heading to who knows where. Nothing remarkable, really. The ease with which a person can fade into the background here is reflective of the kind of city Luxembourg will always be. But the humdrum's one thing I've learned to live with. Needless to say, it doesn't always stay that way. There are times when it will come alive, make itself known, and reassert itself back into the world. However, those moments are few and far in between. Then again, with what graces the news channels lately, I'm starting to think it's going to happen sooner. Can't say I'm looking forward to what it'll bring.
Luxury living, is it?
Her voice effectively cuts through my thoughts just as I count the 13th passerby wearing a hat today. Besides me, I can hear the faint rustling of paper and the clicking of her pen as she stashes them back to her bag.
Excuse me, what?
The magazine you're working for. It's Luxury Living, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. You've been featured by them before, I take it?
A few years back, yes. For just some issues. My designs still appear from time to time, though not as frequent as before. Gotta have room for new talents, right?
It may not show in her face, but the pride is evident in her voice.
Good folks, the people running the publication. Tell me, is DK still on the editorial team?
I wouldn't know. I've only started taking jobs from them this year. Freelancer, you know.
Good man, that guy. Anyone in our field should meet him. He had a lot of things to say about art, all of them relevant. Learned a lot from him, actually, even if we both came from two different fields. I hope he's in a good place. I haven't talked to him in a while. Anyway, your portfolio must have been good if they gave you the job. They don't easily assign big features to freelancers like this.
I wouldn't say I am, but experienced, you know? The more you practice it, the more you learn the tricks of the trade. That kind of stuff.
I know what you mean. Still, you've got to keep up with the competition. Each year, a new talent emerges, and, well, you never know. Clients can be a bit fickle-minded with their choices. Believe me.
Believe me.
Speaking of, do you think you'd be up for a new client after this?
I think so. Depends on how big the project is.
Are you the client? She reaches into her bag again. This time to pull out a business card, which she hands over to me. Marianne McCulloch.
When you're free, send your portfolio to Chris. He's my assistant. He's been looking for a decent photographer to help with updating the studio's portfolio. Nothing urgent, but the sooner the better.
Not sure if I'll have the time to squeeze this in. But, alright, I'll give it a go once.
Marianne, could you look this over for me?
At that very moment, Miss Wright emerges from the store. When I look back to Miss McCulloch, a mask of professionalism has returned to her face. Or at least that is what it is trying to be. There's a different light in her eyes as she faces her, a flicker of familiarity and recognition. I'd say it's fondness, but that would be too presumptuous. Whatever it is, doesn't last and bristly swept under the firm tone her voice assumes.
Definitely. Is there a problem?
They said they don't have the colors you suggested. Do you think we can change it around for a bit? It might take a while if we insist what we want, and you know I'd rather not worry about this later.
I think it'd be better if I handle this one myself. Excuse me.
She walks into the shop without another word, leaving the two of us standing outside. As soon as she's out of earshot, however, Miss Wright lets out a giggle and swipes the business card cleanly off my hand. She smiles, a bemused little thing spreads across her face, and waves the card in front of me. I wish she'll do that more often. The smiling thing. It suits her more than the other one she frequently shows to the media.
I look away, and the next thing I know, you're picking up women. On the streets, while the sun is high, no less. I'm not sure if I should be appalled or amazed.
You jealous?
Whatever happened to the Zach I met a day ago? About as tall as you. Photographer. Quite the gentleman. To tell you the truth, I'm a bit disappointed he's gone.
It ain't like that, Miss Wright. And I'm sure Miss McCullough is not the kind of woman to let herself be picked up by strangers, let alone people she barely knows.
Oh, shush. Let me have my fun. And didn't I say you can call me Hannah? This right after you introduced yourself as my friend in front of my husband. I do believe this isn't how friends address each other. Too formal, don't you think?
She gives me the card. She gives the card back to me nevertheless, and with it, her mood fades into a more pensive one. An odd look settles on her face, yearning, a bit wistful, as she looks back towards the shop's display window. There's nothing remotely interesting in it for me when I follow her line of sight, though. A few trinkets here and there, a fur rug, a sofa, a wooden side table, and a lamp, all tastefully picked and arranged to resemble a typical antique living room. On second thought, it does look comfortable. But why they added a crib beside it baffles me. Unless, of course, the people they're hoping to market to are those who already have children, or about to have one, then maybe it is fitting. Peculiar choice of decorations aside, it does make for a nice icebreaker, if it's not on the same level of weird and completely out of the blue. It still leagues better than the awkward silence, which is definitely too out of character for a personality like Miss Hannah's. How should I start the conversation? This one.
I think that one looks cute.
Hannah balks to my surprise, shuffling 2 steps away from the window, and glares at it with such vehemence as if it did something remotely scandalous. A funny sight when taken out of context, and I probably will be laughing, really, if I understand what warranted such a reaction from her.
I wasn't looking at the crib.
I wasn't really talking about the crib, Hana.
Very good then. But it wasn't the crib, all right.
Alright, I get you. But that's not it. Honest. I was just saying the stuff that was on display there looks nice. Or at least as nice as it can be compared to the ones we visited earlier. But I'm sure your interior designer has something different in mind for your mansion, so don't mind me.
I was hoping that would be enough to cut the topic short. Instead, she sighs, leans on the wall closest to her, and runs her hands through a lock of her hair. There is a far-flung look in her eyes, even as she fixes it on the concrete curb.
You need to stop looking at people like that, sweetie.
I'm afraid I don't quite catch your drift, ma'am.
I suppose you wouldn't be aware of it. Do you know you always carry this kind of phase? Like you're always staring at the world with this honest look. Like all there is to see is all the good in it.
Frankly, I don't see anything wrong if it's like that. I mean, there always has to be something in it. You know, a sprinkle of kindness here and there. Otherwise, we'd all be miserable.
For you, maybe. Some people have to fight through it just to see that. And kindness isn't always a great thing to have around. Sometimes too much of it can hurt.
It makes you wonder where this is coming from. How bad things have really gone for her to have this view. I do understand her sentiment, I really do. Still, when it's the last thing you can cling to, when things have gone irreversibly bad, sometimes you simply don't get to make a choice.
Besides, the point is, it's impossible to lie when a person is looking at you like that. Or I could, but I'd feel like a horrible person afterwards. Did you hear that, Mr. Zack? You just made me feel like a horrible person.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I sort of wish I had one like it. Just so people would stop lying to my face.
Or you can start by being honest with yourself. It shouldn't be quite hard. Friends don't lie to each other, don't they?
I guess so.
So what was the lie?
The crib. She draws in a breath, lays a soothing hand on her stomach, and...
That it was really the crib I was looking at earlier, silly!
Can she not have a baby?
You're right, Uncle Zack. It's cute, but the pattern's not to my taste. I'm pretty sure Marianne could do something about that, though. At the moment, what I should really be worried about is if I'm ever going to be a good mother to this child. Ned, I can't even tell the father he's going to be one in a few months' time.
Wait, you're pregnant?
Probably doesn't even want anything to do with this whole pregnancy thing. What am I going to do, Zack? Because right now, I'm absolutely at a loss.
You're pregnant?
Oh.
A beat.
Oh!
The realization strikes me like a ton of bricks suddenly bearing down on me. More than astonishment must have shown in my face because Hannah lets out a chuckle. The slump on her shoulders disappears altogether underneath her mirth.
Don't look so surprised, dearie. Tied the knot 7 years ago, remember? Don't you think it's bound to happen?
She brandishes her hand in front of me, the unassuming sliver band on her finger, glinting against the late morning sunlight for a second. She eyes it lovingly, almost tenderly, despite the trace of sadness in her voice. She pregnant? For all I know, there is an entire story there. I'd ask, but that would be too inappropriate, even for friends. It's not my place to meddle to begin with.
Or at least that's what they've been saying early on. My whole social circle would be saying it's a long time coming.
But the kid is something you want, right? Because if it ain't, then that's a whole other problem.
Of course. I wouldn't deny I've been hoping to have him or her for a long time now. But then, now that we're here, all of a sudden, there are a whole lot of other things to be worried about. Business, a new home, public image, my own husband, and I don't know. I didn't really have anyone for a role model. I practically grew up with nursemaids pampering me every step of the way. What if it happens to this baby as well? Oh, I can already see how this will end.
Huh. I guess it's not just my sister.
What?
You and my sister. I mean, you're both having jitters or something like that. That's what it's called, right? First baby jitters?
First baby jitters. I never heard that before.
Mind you, she was really convinced she'd do everything wrong then. He even called me in the middle of the night. Asked to switch places the day she found out she's carrying a new member of the family. Never mind how utterly impossible her request is.
I'm quite sure I haven't done anything of that sort yet.
You pregnant?
Oh, you don't know that?
With the demon spawn? No, Hannah, no. Okay, well, I'm out of time. So we're gonna have to stop here. Oh, Lord. Zach, you about to be a baby stepdaddy. Oh no, Hannah. No, he's a bad man. Don't have his baby. Alright. We gotta end it. We gotta end it right now. Alright. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you know when I post. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And we will learn more about baby mama drama.